Hi.
I
Um, okay, I'm here with my friend Carol from Twitter, and also from some other places, which we won't get into.
I'm
um,
around. I'm around.
she's around, and today I have invited Carol onto my Zoom channel, my Zoom video, because we're both detransitioned and we both had the procedure known as top surgery, also referred to as double mastectomy or teetus deletus surgery. Um, and I wanted to talk about our experiences with that and what that's been like for us. And I think this is something that is a little bit harder to talk about because, than some other detransition topics, because at least speaking for myself, it's one of the more acutely painful elements of transition and detransition that I've dealt with, and is a little more, just a little heavier. So yeah, but hoping this will be a good conversation about that. So Carol, you had top surgery.
Yes, I did. I had in 2015, July of 2015, I had top surgery only 4 months into taking testosterone. So, I mean, everything happened really fast.
So I also had top surgery 4 months after taking testosterone.
Oh, awesome.
Good choices. So why did you rush? Why did you do it so fast?
For me, I did it super fast because I felt that I couldn't, I mean, I had very large breasts and I couldn't bind or anything. So I couldn't hide them. And once I started testosterone and changes started happening, I really wanted them gone because I felt like they would impede me passing and they made me super nervous about the whole passing part of it. So I wanted them gone like super quick.
So you weren't binding very much during transition?
I could not, no.
Uh-huh.
It was just too painful I just couldn't do it.
Um, yeah, I remember part of the reason that I got it done so fast was that I had been binding, but it felt really uncomfortable. And I had the same thing as you of just thinking like, this is the main impediment to me passing. And I kind of want to get this over as soon as possible. I mean, I think a lot of people talk about top surgery as like the most important thing for like female to male trans people to do, because then you don't have to bind and you got a flat chest. And so also, I remember Donald, I did mine in 2017, and I remember everyone was really freaking out that Donald Trump was going to like take away trans healthcare and be like, you can't transition anymore.
Yeah, I mean, people don't know how government works.
Yeah, it was like a lot of online histrionics making me be like, oh God.
Oh, so you felt like you had to, that was another reason why you felt like you had to hurry up and get it done.
Yeah, which in retrospect is very embarrassing that I got swept up into that. But like really, like everyone around me was totally wigging out. And it's really hard not to get caught up in that kind of thing
Oh yeah.
when that's going on in your peer group. So what was it like for you after you got the surgery? Was there a sense of relief?
Oh yeah, a lot. The funny thing about, well, maybe it's not funny. I mean, it's just a different perspective, different like experience. But I actually didn't regret having my mastectomy until after I started detransitioning, and I detransitioned about 4 years after starting testosterone and having the mastectomy. So I went a pretty long time just like really not regretting it and feeling okay about it. And then it wasn't till after detransitioning where I started to reconcile with my body and reconcile with the reasons why I did it, that I was crushed by the fact that I did it. And then I felt like I felt like I missed them because I always felt like my breasts were not a part of me. And it wasn't till I went through a whole kind of integrating again with my body and accepting my body for what it was and feeling like I owned my body, that I then felt like those were mine and they're gone now. And then I started to have weird, like, I started to think, I wonder where they're at. Like, you know, just like what happened. I'm sure they just burn it, I guess. And I just felt so like weird. And it was after like when I started going through that whole processing is when I started to then have some kind of like, I don't want to say PTSD, that might be too extreme, but some kind of elements of that around the surgery itself, which I had never really thought about.
Oh, wow. So, so, so you felt like maybe like during your time when you were like still transitioning and feeling positive about that, like you were just not like checked into those feelings of like feeling connected with your body. And then you feel like when you found yourself more like connected and integrated, then the loss became apparent to you.
Yep.
That's so interesting that it was so delayed, I guess. Because I remember I maybe I'm more of a trans trender than you. I remember I started having like phantom limb sensations and like feeling like something was wrong very, very quickly. But I think probably, you know, we're two different people with like different, who are like having different psychological needs and having a different relationship with transition. It's just interesting.
I mean, I think I had been living with hating my breasts and hating that aspect of myself for so many years, what would be categorized as gender dysphoria around my breasts for so long.
Yeah.
And being disconnected from my body for, I mean, I really honestly, I think I disconnected from my body at 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
You know, when some severe child abuse started. So I don't think I ever was engaged with it. And so I can't, you know, it's really hard to kind of, I don't know, to miss something when you never were engaged with your body. And it's not until you engage with it that then you then feel like you own it. And I think I've read articles and stuff about the some hypotheses around dysphoria and having an element of people feeling like they don't own their body, like it's not theirs. And I think that was definitely a huge component of my issues, is I didn't feel like I owned my body. I felt like my body belonged to other people and society and stuff.
And the surgery was like a way to, did the surgery feel like a way to make your body more your own?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it did. It was, I mean, I'm getting rid of a part breast that brought me a lot of attention I didn't want, a lot of pain I didn't want, and something I felt like I should never have because I felt like I had no use for them. What use did I have for them? You know, so yeah, I was very happy after my surgery. I didn't have any regret really, and it, like I said, it wasn't until after detransitioning that the regret set in real hard.
I mean, it's such a profound loss of like, not just of like a body part, but also of the ability to truly reconcile with that part of yourself and still have it. Especially once you realize that healing is possible.
Oh God, I can't.
Like,
I'm glad you brought that up because that's kind of like the most immense painful part of it, was to go, I could have been okay with them. I could have reconciled with it. And now I don't have that opportunity. That opportunity is gone. And that still brings me anger, you know, because that goes back to the whole, wow, therapy, no one in the therapeutic community did shit to help me reconcile with my body. And that's a big source of anger.
yeah. Yeah. And you said like you had almost like trauma style. I don't want to like make a clinical thing, but you know, like really intense, painful feelings. If I can share something, I remember after I had my surgery and after I started fully regretting it, something I can relate to your story is there was a period of time when I thought that it was still going to be worth it. Like, even though I knew it was very painful. But once I realized that I also was detransitioning, then I truly began to grieve. And I have never been so like, I've never experienced this kind of intense anguish before, specifically like located around like a real physical wound in my body. And I even when I was experiencing it, I was like, I feel like a crazy person right now. Like I was literally like, I can't even look down at myself. Like I feel so like I would be in the shower, like I can't even look down at my body because like the scars and the, just the mess of what it looks like is so painful to behold. Like I have to pretend it didn't happen. And it was like in my head, I was like, obviously it did happen. And like I'm having some kind of psychological reaction, but it was so intense and so acute. And I just hadn't experienced anything like that before. And it's really something.
So you experienced regret pretty quick after the surgery?
Yeah, it was mixed though, because it was very physically painful. And I like, I don't know, I remember like showing my post-surgical chest to my parents or something and having them like trying to look happy for me, but obviously like, having their eyes kind of fill with tears, like, oh my God. And
I've had experience too, where I was sharing like my chest with family members and they're like, ah.
you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
That looks good. Yeah. And it
Great.
yeah, just had really mixed feelings because aside from feeling like I had reached a really big goal, it was just really painful. And
Physically
gross. It
painful?
was gross. Yeah,
Okay.
it was
Yeah,
gross. It
that's
looked bad.
yeah. So do you want to talk about that expectation versus reality? Because that's such
Yeah.
a mind bender. Like, so the expectation with surgery was that I would have a male looking chest. That never happened. I don't have a male looking chest. I have a chest that's well, at this point looks like some weird small boobs. Like, it's not, there's not, it's kind of strange. I say small because like once I detransitioned, I think the fat redistribution and stuff, whatever tissue was left after the surgery kind of like plumped back up. So I have like, these like little tiny boob things. I don't booblets. I call them booblets. So, but it's like now I don't, yeah, and even after the surgery, I was like a bit more tissue was left behind. So I didn't have like a super flat chest, right? It still was like didn't look male. And the nipples weren't quite right. And so like you had this expectation of like a male chest. And of course, these surgeons promised this and everything. And you come out going, okay, yeah, well, I don't have boobs. That's good. But like, I don't want to walk around without a shirt and have people see this either, which was like my whole main, like kind of a big thing for me. I was like, oh, I can be shirtless and I can, have and I'm like, yeah, no, I won't, especially because I have scars too. Like, I don't want that attention.
Yeah. The male chest expectation for me was like, part of me knew that in order to like truly look male, I was going to have to probably also work out and stuff, which was like, I really don't want to do. I'm a little bit of a nerd, so it's not my favorite thing to do. But there was something about like the nipples. I had a friend who, as far as I know, does not regret top surgery, who nonetheless made a piece of art afterwards, after getting top surgery, that was pictures of their nipples next to pictures of pepperonis on pizzas, and was like, this is weird. So I guess having having that, yeah, the results of what surgery can get you and just like how it looks, it's just not, it's just, yeah, you can't just get a surgical male chest. Maybe if you get like implants, you know, get like pec implants and get like sculpting.
I think that the trans men that can pull it off are the ones that are into the whole like super bodybuilding type of being super athletic and building that male physique. Like, I think they will be able to kind of counteract what it looks like by kind of hiding it and distracting. But if you're an average person, you live in an average life and you're not a gym rat, you ain't going to get that chest. Like, that chest is not going to happen.
And the problem, I don't know what you like, sort of the like broader psychological expectations you were hoping for from transition, but something that I was kind of feeling bummed out about when I was realizing how far I would need to go to truly have even anything close to like a, you know, more male looking physique, is being like, oh, this is going to be like a lot of continuous effort, which again, like I understand that like working out takes effort, but I think it contrasted with sort of this hope that I had that it would be like, and now things can be like a little easier. Like, I don't have to worry about my appearance as much. I'm going to feel better. But it was like, now there's something else I have to worry about immediately, which is, you know, the shoulders are not as wide as the hips, and you have to.
Oh yeah, that is nothing you're gonna fix. Like, you got a female skeleton. You're not gonna, it's not gonna change. Like, you know,
female skeleton.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The hips are always gonna be there. You know that you have a different, you know, build. You know, the other part of the surgery too is the surgeon was like, oh, you'll be up and around and you can even go back to lifting weights 6 weeks after surgery. Bull fucking shit. And let me tell you, I was super careful. I did everything I was supposed to do. I went above and beyond with like, you know, getting like special, you know, like cream and stuff. Like, I was super good about that kind of stuff. And I could not sleep any way else other than on my back for 4 weeks, which was fucking exhausting because I don't sleep on my back.
Oh my God.
I had to stay in a binder for like 2 weeks, even though they said I only had to be in it for a couple days, because I kept swelling up really bad. And they were like, oh, I don't know why that's happening. Well, I don't either. You're the fucking doctor. And so I had the kind of surgery I had, they did put drains in. So what happened is one of my, I think it was, I don't remember what side it was. I think it was this side. It swelled up like super big and then suddenly just, and like all the fluid just started pouring out one day, like pouring out. And I was like, oh, shit, do I go to the ER? Like, what the fuck? And so I called them and they were like, okay, take some pictures of it and send it to us. And so I did that and they were like, oh, well, it's clear. So it's probably just the fluid. If it's not blood, you'll probably be fine. Just like put a sanitary pad on it or something to soap up like how much it's draining. And I was like, okay. So, yeah. And then it just like, a lot of fluid came out. Like, that was really kind of gross. I was like, oh my God. It wasn't an infection or anything. It was just this fluid that just built up in there. And so yeah, that was super uncomfortable. I also couldn't really do much with my chest or really do much with my upper body for a good 6 months. Like, it was uncomfortable. And then wearing a seatbelt a good year to 2 years, it was always just irritated. Like, it really took a good 2 to 3 years for my chest to not be sensitive anymore. And anytime I would do activity, this side would swell up, the side that had the issue. And I mean, that didn't go for a long time. So that whole part of it was just a bunch of bullshit, you know, because it's like, yeah, no, this is not an in and out type of surgery.
Yeah, I think I remember my surgeon describing it as like an easy surgery or like an easier surgery, which is like, yeah, maybe it is compared to like getting your legs cut off or something, but it's, you know, it's still a surgery.
Did you go into a hospital? Were you hospitalized for it?
Uh, I went home. I went out after the, like, I didn't spend the night in the hospital,
Okay.
if that's what you're asking. Were you?
No, like that was something that I was a little taken back by, is like where they did it was this like little building that was just not very, like it was
What?
weird.
It
Okay,
wasn't a
so
hospital?
no, I did not know. It was it was an outpatient like surgical kind of facility. It was like super small and you wouldn't know what was going on from the outside. But when you
All
went in,
right.
they had like a whole surgical setup. And yeah, it was seriously like an in and out. Like it was that was something I was not prepared for, is when I woke up, I was a little disturbed, but I didn't let it register to me. When I woke up, I was in a recovery area with like 3 other women who were also recovering, because they just like whip you in one after another all day long, just cutting tits off, just left and right. And I could hear them moaning and crying, and that was kind of disturbing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it
That
was.
is great. Oh wow. That's so you didn't even get your own little
No,
space.
no, and this is done by a surgeon in the Bay Area who is like one of the top surgeons in the country, mind you. I didn't go to no like, backwoods type of like surgical facility,
You went to like a dedicated trans surgeon.
Yeah, this was the Crane Surgical Center thing.
Did you go to Crane?
Crane did not do my surgery, but it was his center.
Did
Satterwhite did my surgery.
did did he Crane, Dr. Crane has since like gone to Texas, right?
Yes, yeah.
Dr. Crane, if our viewers don't know this, Dr. Crane has had a lot of complaints for, I think, phalloplasty problems in particular. But
Yeah.
so I guess he also had a sort of drive-through style quick boob removal type.
Yeah.
You
And
got your In-N-Out burger and you got your In-N-Out boob.
and they wanted to kick you out fast. Like the minute I was up, they were like, get the fuck out of here. And I remember being pissed about it. I was like, I just came out of surgery, fuck you. And I was aggressive, which is usually the case if I'm coming out of anesthesia. But yeah, it was a very in and out type of thing, which is weird looking back on it. The other thing that was kind of disturbing, and it bothered me later on once I started processing everything, was that when it was time to go in, I stood up and walked into the room
Oh,
and got on the table and laid down before they put me under or anything. So, and the table is designed like it's a cross, basically. So, as far as like symbolism goes, it felt it, there's this crucifixion type aspect to it that I can't help but think about. And I remember them putting my arms out and actually like strapping them down before they even put me under.
oh
So I
no.
have that whole like memory of like walking into that room, seeing that table, laying down on it. Like it's so disturbing, because it's like I offered myself up. I did that. But people also encouraged and helped me. And it's just a very weird kind of mix of emotions.
Yeah, the memory of like going into the operating room is extremely dark and painful. Although I did not get strapped into a crucifix like you did. So at
Do
least
you remember what the operating room looked like, or did they have you kind of sedated before they even took you in?
I remember I was rolled in on one of those gurneys, and I remember everyone was really nice, and they were like, I feel like they were listening to like folk music or something. But it's weird, it's weird because you just want to like go back. You want to go back to yourself and be like, run, run. Like,
Oh yeah.
get out of there. Like, what are you doing? It's like, it's very like a horror movie style memory to look back on for me. Although your thing seems way creepier. Like the you have very disturbing elements to your story that I mercifully didn't have. Like I wasn't in a room full of other patients moaning in pain. But
Yeah. It's funny
man,
though, because at the time it wasn't that disturbing. It wasn't till like I said, years after the fact that this shit comes back and you're like, wow, this is heavy and this is really disturbing.
yeah, you just, that you're like checked out of that part of yourself. Um, I was reading, I mentioned this in the last video I did too, but I was reading a book about like the psychology of gender dysphoria. And they were describing one patient who had all these like painful psychological issues. But he was like planning to transition. This person didn't end up transitioning, I think, and had just sort of become completely numb and indifferent to them and was like, whatever, I'm like checked out of it. I'm not, this is just, this part of myself doesn't exist to me anymore. I'm just dissociated from it. And I think there's a way when we are like dissociated from the like physical responses of our bodies that we just like don't experience the horror of something like that in the moment. And then later, oof.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this it's really not that out of the ordinary because, people experience trauma. And then when they go to address it many years later, like there's people that can address trauma 30 years later and have it just as heart-wrenching and hard to deal with as it was the minute it happened, if not more so, because now they're able to like kind of process it normally.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think it's pretty normal, I think, to have these feelings come up much later. Although if in just talking with other detransitioners, I don't know if you feel the same, but it seems like my story of much later regret is a little bit different far as regret over top surgery. It seems like a lot of the women who had top surgery had regret pretty quick after having it. Like that was kind of what spurred the
Mm-hmm.
detransition almost, was this like, oh my
Yeah.
God, And you talk about feeling, like having phantom feelings and feeling the real loss. And I've never had that. Like I've never had the actual phantom feeling of loss. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like I don't remember what it was like to ever have them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I think I mentioned this on Twitter a couple of days ago, because, I go there to tell people everything about me. I did have a dream a couple of days ago where I dreamt I had breast again, and it felt so real. And it was really bizarre to wake up from that and go and then feel the loss. And that was kind of a real first for me. And honestly, pretty disturbed for a day or two about that, because that was the first time I could go back and feel the presence of parts of my body that aren't there anymore.
Was it in the dream, was it like a neutral or positive feeling having breasts again?
Yeah, it was pretty neutral, I would say. I was bra shopping, actually. Which is interesting now that I'm talking about. It's interesting because bra shopping was always such like almost a trauma for me. Like I hated
Mm-hmm.
it. Was just such it made me so angry because I didn't want breasts and I didn't want that whole everything. And so I guess in that aspect, this was positive because I was bra shopping in a kind of fun, neutral way, like just
Mm-hmm.
finding bras for my boobs, and it wasn't a big deal. And I was trying on different ones, and I think my wife was there, and we were laughing here and there about different types of bras. So I think it was a positive dream, and I said it's good. I mean, I guess that's kind of a good processing.
Yeah, it's like, especially you're like a butch woman. You're not like, I don't think if you had boobs now, you would be like, let's go to Victoria's Secret and
No,
have a fun old time buying a push-up bra. Like, but to have that process that had been so emotionally charged with like bad feelings be something that in the dream was represented as like neutral, you don't need to be thrilled about every cultural aspect of womanhood. Like
Oh,
that's not what detransition means to me. I don't think it's what detransition means to most people.
mm-mm.
Um, I know that it sort of gets cast that way. People are like, oh, you just want everyone to be gender conforming and blah blah blah. But it's like that doesn't have to be it at all.
I
But
mean,
just
I know I run across that too, and I'm like, you all realize that I literally changed nothing about myself when I detransitioned other than stopping testosterone, right? Like
mhm.
that's all I did. I didn't change my clothes. I still dress the way I've always dressed. I still have my hair the same. I shave. But other than that, like that's it. I didn't change anything. So you don't, it's not about that. And I ran across a detransitioner talking on one of the support groups, Facebook or something the other day, talking about how she still doesn't pass as female. And I'm like, hun, I didn't pass as female most of the time, even before transitioning. Like,
Mhm.
if that's your goal, that's a bad goal, in my opinion. Like, this whole passing thing needs to go out the fucking window, especially with detransition, because it's not about that. And you might never pass again, because what does that mean?
Right. Like passing. This is interesting because, you know, I wasn't on testosterone that long, and I'm also like dressed more femininely. I think that when you're detransitioned and have sort of an androgynous body, what comes down to for passing is just like what kind of clothes you wear. Like,
Clothes and
I,
hair.
yeah,
Yeah.
I probably would get mistaken for a teenage boy if I still had a buzz cut and wore masculine clothes. Um, but and I don't want to totally like discount people's desire to like socially pass as female, because I think for some people it can make things more comfortable to them, and that can be an important step for them. But in sort of my ideal, in what I really value about detransition and what I hope it would mean to other people, although I don't think this is always the case, is that it would just be really about accepting all of yourself as you are. And that includes like the things that you like, the things you like to do, like the way you like to dress, the way you like to present yourself, just like, and accepting your body as it is, but not because that will then define who you are and limit you and be the sole point of your whole personality, but just because I think it's good to just not be at war with your body and not be like hurting your body.
Yeah.
Which so yeah, I appreciate that you brought that up about it
And
being
you're right.
about self-acceptance.
You're right. I can understand why you would want to pass, because you want to be, I get that, because I wish I was seen as female more. Like I
Hmm.
do. And that's really mostly because I want to be able to have other women recognize me as one of them. Like that's
Yeah.
why I want to be able to be seen as a woman. But like I also have no control over that really. Because
Hmm.
I'm not going to change myself to fit other people's perceptions of what a woman is. So,
Hmm.
I've just kind of come to terms with, I most of the time will be seen as a guy or whatever, and that's fine. I can't. I mean, that was a big source of my issues before, so I obviously am not going to go down that road again. I had to learn to
Hmm.
accept that.
That's powerful. A powerful form of self-acceptance. And can I just in terms of, what you said about wanting to be accepted as female and like seen as female. Well, yeah, to wanting other women to know that you're female. Something that I was kind of mulling over during my transition was like, as I began to pass a little bit to strangers, I had this peculiar feeling where it was like, well, this Wendy's checkout person thought that I was male. But, everyone who loves me and knows me, they know my whole history. And, there's no escaping that. And there's escaping that with strangers temporarily. But I was like, the people who really love me and know me know my history and they know what's going on. And as I get older, the more I realize like, well, those are the only people that I really care about knowing me at all. Like, I don't really care if strangers are looking at me and being like, she doesn't have any boobs, she looks weird. Like, I saw her on 60 Minutes and I think she sucks. Like, you know, it's 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 about, and like, maybe people mistake you for a male on the street, but it's like your wife knows you're female, like your son knows, like people who care about you know. And I think that that is, when it comes to like other people understanding you, that's really who seems to matter the most, or really the only people who matter at all.
I agree. I really think that would be a good therapeutic focus, is getting people to engage with who really matters and what really matters, instead of focusing on validation of the outside world.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too. I think I remember reading in like the 1950s and stuff, trans people would sort of like start a whole new life with like strangers where really like no one knew them.
Yeah,
But
makes sense. But
uh-huh.
the one thing I didn't expect about transition is this you struggle with dissociation. I think when you have gender dysphoria and issues like that, then you transition. And for me, I still had dissociation issues because, or what you call like, I don't know, what's the word for it, where like, there's like one actual reality, but then this other thing that you're trying to fit into. It's a cognitive dissonance. There's like a cognitive
Yeah.
dissonance with the reality that I had a whole fucking history of being a woman, of being a butch woman, of being
Yeah.
a wife and a mother, and all this history. And you just can't erase that history, because even though transition helped aspects of gender dysphoria, it also created all these other issues too that I did not have before, because now I'm having to hide things. I can't talk about my past. It's just this constant upkeep, and that got tiring. The upkeep got tiring. Upkeep with everything, shots too. You know, I was like, I'm so sick of giving myself shots.
The talking about your past, were you like living and working with people knowing you as male?
Yeah, I did kind of do a start over as much as possible.
So were you having to sort of try to like talk about your past? Like, you can't talk about being a little girl and like, you know, stuff you did as a child. Well, maybe you can, but like in veiled language.
You get good at using the gender neutral stuff. When I was a kid, not when I was a little girl or a little boy, when I was a kid, I did this or did that. You had to be careful. And oftentimes I just wouldn't talk about too much of my history, because I'm not a good liar.
Does it feel like a relief to be able to just acknowledge all of your past again?
Yeah. It is. It is. And another aspect to it was, I didn't expect to really miss being a lesbian with my wife. Granted, we still were. I'm not saying we weren't. We were still female. But to be viewed as that, to live that honestly, I was a huge miss for me. I was just like, I'm really missing something here. So I was very glad to get back to that.
Yeah, you talk a lot about this on Twitter, and I think in your writing, and I feel like, you know, your relationship with your wife and your, you know, experience as a lesbian, and I think also like you have very strong like feminist beliefs and like a strong feeling of like kinship and sisterhood with women that's like very important to you, and it seems like that's something that has been like a lifeline for you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it was a huge component of helping me, I think, come out of kind of this belief in being trans and transgender, you know, like ideology, basically, like the whole just belief around it. And also kind of re-engaging and reconnecting with being a woman and being female. Only the first step for me was accepting I was female. Basically just going, I'm female. And then the next step was, I'm a woman because I'm female. That's it. You know, that to me, it's so simple, but when I was really, even before I started detransitioning, but right with that year where I kept questioning, like, I think I want to stop, I think I want to stop, but oh my God, I've gone too far type of situation. I remember I don't remember who it was, but it was some radical feminist that some, quote unquote turf that people were knocking on. I watched something she said in an interview, and she said, the only thing that makes you a woman is you're born female. That's it. The rest is just basically, to put it in my way, bullshit. And I was like, yes, why didn't I ever think about that before? Like, why? This is so simple. Why didn't I think about this before? But that really helped me. And so the first step in detransition and reconciliation was to first go, I'm stopping this because this harms my body, and I need to stop hurting myself. The second part to this, when my period came back, was okay. 'Cause period was a big like dysphoria thing for me. It was like, okay, it's back. That's good. That means I'm getting healthy. That means my body's recovering. So I framed it in a positive way. My body's doing what it's supposed to do to be healthy. And then the rest just kind of came from there. The more I started to accept just the reality and my femaleness, and going into what womanhood is. Womanhood is so many things that is not about how you dress or how you look or even what you do. Womanhood is being a woman. Like, that's it.
And
So yeah, definitely big feminist stuff. A lot of feminist stuff would really help.
Do you feel like you were somehow like set free from some sort of like framing you had unconsciously accepted about like what womanhood would have to mean for you?
Oh yeah, big time. Because even from a kid, I hated the whole idea of womanhood, because to me, womanhood was one, being feminine, being very performative, which I didn't like, being with men or catering to men, like that. And it was all these, it was also a big signifier for a big thing for me that was really, is to be a woman was to be weak. To be a woman was to be silly. To be a woman was to be not as capable. And all those things got put on me and into my mindset very, very young, because I grew up in a very religious, gender strict house. And so those things got instilled very young, that I was less human because I was female. So I didn't want any of that.
Yeah. That's a horrible burden to put on a little girl.
Yes, it is. There was no female empowerment where I grew up.
Yeah, I'm so sorry you experienced that. It's just really hard. I think there's a way that this message of like, to be female does not mean anything about the kind of person you have to be. Like, it just means something about your body. It's neutral. It's the things that a female body does are neutral. They don't mean you have to be, they don't mean you have to have a baby. They don't mean you have to do anything. Like that, it's simple to say. And I think, everyone would be like, yeah, I get it. But like, I do think there's a way that we unconsciously begin to accept like, oh, this is like, I'm like vulnerable. And there are some things you do have to sort of just deal with. Like, I know that I can't fight a man.
Yeah.
I just have like nothing that I can do can change that. I could maybe try to build like a mecha suit, but I just, obviously that sucks, but,
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think, I mean, not women don't have to go like full on, deep radical feminists or anything to get these basic ideas. I mean, these are basic feminist ideas. These aren't actually radical feminist ideas. These are like just feminist ideas, second wave feminism. It was really all about that, just, really analyzing and thinking about what is put on us as females in our society and how that affects us.
Mhm.
and what it means to be a woman. And I think that's so beneficial to all females to kind of really understand how patriarchy works and how our social system works and how it can be pretty hard on females, on girls and women. I mean,
Mhm.
you can understand it and you can, understand the big picture and still move forward. You don't got to get stuck. Some people get real stuck and just like, oh, it's so horrible. It's like, well, it can be pretty bad, but there's also a lot of good too.
I just yeah, and this is something I feel kind of like delicate about expressing, because I think it's like it's a little bit of a it's a little bit of a personal thing for me, but I do see this sometimes, which is I think it's good to accept I think it's good to accept, like, these ideas of what a woman should be, they're bullshit. Like, you don't have to do them. You don't, but maybe there is, real pressure. Like, people really, can be very cruel to like gender nonconforming women. Like, that's real.
Oh yeah.
Um, and like it is real that you're vulnerable in certain ways. Like, but I think I have at times, and like especially around my transition, part of my problem was getting too hopeless or something and feeling disempowered. And I'm not trying to say like don't don't think about it, don't think about it, but I think what is important is to, maintain a knowledge of the things you can do and maintain a knowledge of the ways that you can be empowered and like, be safe and have a good life. Like, I think we all have that in our power to a large extent, not fully, but
Yeah.
just not becoming too hopeless, and just remembering that like women are, strong and able to create like just wonderful
Oh
lives
yeah.
for themselves.
I tell you what, nothing has really really driven home my belief that women are like the ones that pretty much run the world and are really awesome. Like being in, some of the Detrans advocacy and knowing other Detrans women, because behind the scenes of this whole movement is pretty much all women. It's all women. There's barely any men behind any of this. And it's really awesome to see, and when you get behind the scenes, you realize women are behind the scenes doing most of the work. And I think we always have been. And while that sucks and we hope to kind of change that as time goes on, it's also awesome to know that we are so capable.
Hmm.
So, I
And
mean,
yeah, women, yeah, women's, that's another thing that I think like internalized misogyny, you can start to like devalue the things that women do. Like, I remember, I don't know, like let me talk about my mom, for example. Like, she is like an amazing, well, she does everything basically. She's one of these like super women type people, but she like connects people. She's a connector. She knows a lot of people. She like puts people in touch with each other. They do a lot of like just like all kinds of things. And when I was growing up, I didn't realize, it's like, oh, it's kind of one of these things that you don't realize how powerful it is. But as I get older and see how powerful like just people like connecting with each other, and I feel like that's often such a female thing to do, is like do networks. Like, it's not that only women can do it, but I feel like often women do this and like get connected with each other and like form groups to get things done. And it's like that's how things happen. It's very powerful.
yeah, I mean, that's a good point. There's been for, I mean, God, it's probably forever, a real devaluing of anything that's considered female or woman. Like if women are into it or women do this particular thing, it's devalued. And that's something to look at and to be critical of, because it's not any less value. It really is just being devalued because men are like, hey, we're awesome and we're in charge, so anything you do is silly. It's like, no, I mean, and I think that's why it's super important for women and girls to have a good feminist foundation and to find, I think that's also why women's spaces and women's festivals and women's groups are really important. And I think it's important to get girls into that young, because being around nothing but women, strong women who are doing stuff, making things, creating, it's very empowering. It really makes you feel good because you're part of, you're in your tribe, you know, women are a tribe, and we all experience very similar things. And I think it's good to have that space. I mean, those spaces have been very helpful and healing to me. And I think that it would go a long way to help so much of what I think young girls are going through right now, is to have that kind of feminist base and that like women focused structure to be in. You know, you have to find your tribe because the world sucks. So find your group and you get support there.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever go to Mitch Fest?
Nope. I wish I had. And I feel like if I would have gone when I first came out as a lesbian, might have changed my like course, because I would have seen, from what I've heard and seen and read, I would have seen so many women in so many different ways of being and doing so many things that I think it would have really made me feel empowered as a woman to be around that.
To have like, you know, I guess the thing that they always talk about is like people walking around like bare chested and just being like, this is neutral. This is not like some like pornified display. This is like something that is within, you know, just the neutral female body. Seems very profound. I think I've told you this before, but one of my lesbian friends invited me, was like, you should come to Mitch Fest. It's the last Mitch Fest. And I was like, I've heard they're turfs. I can't, I can't, I'm not gonna do it. So whoops. Could have dodged a bullet. Oh well.
There's you know, there's still some organization, some groups going on. There's still some meetups going on. It's just super underground. So I can get you hooked up, girl. Don't worry about it.
All right, cool. Talk after the video.
You can still have that topless experience.
I don't know. There's this. So have you heard this Adrienne Rich poem about her friend who got a mastectomy?
No.
Can I read you a line of this poem? Because it's about, I think it's a little bit sad. Is that okay?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, let me find it. I'll have to look it up. I'm sorry. Okay. I remember reading this. I think I found it on Max's Tumblr, if you know her. She's a Detrans woman. But it's this poem Adrienne Rich wrote about a friend of hers who had breast cancer and had a mastectomy. But the first stanza of it like struck me very powerfully after I had my surgery, even though it's a different context. So I just wanted to read this bit of it to you and see what you think. This is called A Woman Dead in Her 40s. Your breasts sliced off, the scars dimmed as they would have to be years later. All the women I grew up with are sitting half naked on rocks in sun. We look at each other and are not ashamed. And you too have taken off your blouse, but this is not what you wanted, to show your scarred, deleted torso. I barely glance at you as if my look could scald you, though I'm the one who loved you. I want to touch my fingers to where your breast had been, but we never did such things. You hadn't thought everyone would look so perfect, unmutilated. You pull on your blouse again, stern statement. There are things I will not share with everyone.
Yep. That has some feelings there.
There's something about some of the lines in that really struck me.
It makes me think too about how it was difficult to go back to being intimate with my wife, with my breasts gone, because it was something we had shared, and I got rid of them. And I feel like I took something away from her, and well, from us, I took something away from us. And that was that's been weird. It's something that's still hard for me to kind of be okay with. And but I think early on it was very helpful when I was kind of reconciling and getting in touch with my body and accepting it. Um, she would like give me like chest massages with like lotion or something. Like it was just like an intimacy thing. So like for both of us to kind of reconnect with that part of my body again. And I think that was very helpful, especially because sometimes I still do get pain and swelling. And when that happens, she'll rub it and it makes it feel better. And oh, it's very healing.
It's very tender. The the intimacy, especially like, you know, with someone you love, like there are things that are very challenging emotionally about having a part of the body be like painful and scarred, especially like, yeah, during sex and like intimate times. Um, the I think the contrast and having that loss is probably one of the hardest things about it, I would say. But of course, you know, there are ways that you can like have these meaningful experiences, you know, with your wife or, you know, with my fiance or whoever that like sort of allow you to heal. But I think it is always like very painful. I don't mean to like devalue detrans bodies or anything like that, but I think there is an unavoidable element of, you know, feeling that loss. That's
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's devaluing anybody's body. I mean, especially because we're talking about our experiences. Like that might not be everybody's experience, but it's our experience. I mean, you obviously don't have to share, but are you comfortable with letting your fiance touch your chest? Or is that kind of a no-go zone? Because I've heard lots of women say that that's a no-go zone.
um I can I can it's okay. Like I can I can take it, but it's not something that I really feel like I ever like recovered.
Hmm.
It just feels, you know, it either is numb or it feels bad around the spot where the scars and the nipples are.
Yeah.
Um, maybe there's some like healing ritual type thing I should be doing with that with my fiance, like you and your wife to do some lotion, summon
Because
the boob spirits and make peace with the murder zone.
I mean, I brought it up because I think it's, especially if you have a partner that was there with you through the whole thing too. It's very, uh, you know, you both have to recover from that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it you can't just discredit that your partner was there with you the whole time through this too, and has experienced loss and has experienced just pain around your pain. And you, in my case, I brought my wife pain too with what I did, not just my
Mm-hmm.
breast, but the whole transition. And
Mm-hmm.
I know part of the whole detransition and reconciliation for me too was accepting that I hurt other people with
Mm-hmm.
what I did, and apologizing to them and trying to let them experience their pain and let them direct that pain at me,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where it should go. I caused them pain. I mean, I did that with my wife and my son. They were angry at me, and it's fine. I have to
Yeah.
take.
Yeah. We share this experience of having had our partners go with us.
Yeah.
And I know my fiance was not happy about me transitioning. I know he didn't want me to do it. You know, he wanted me to be happy, so you know, he didn't like throw a huge fit or something. He was very selfless in that way.
Same.
Um, but I do, yeah, I think it's something we've talked about a lot, and of course now he has had to deal with everything, and so I feel, you know, I think we're really like blessed in a way to have someone who's been with us through it. Um, even though it can come with a lot of challenges. But
Very true.
yeah, I think maybe this would be a good place to wrap things up, because I just feel like we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate you having these talks, and I think these are important to have. And it can be hard to have them public, but that's part of kind of changing some dialogue around this stuff and bringing some reality into it. I thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Carol. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Okay, bye-bye.